Week 5 of college football is in the books, but we're going to take a look back at it and see which draft-eligible prospects have helped their stock and hurt their stock. Welcome to the Stock Report, and what's crack-a-lack? It's your boy Broshmo. Just in case you did not know, so go ahead, become bro and subscribe. Leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. As always, let me know what you think in the comment section below where we have that nice, beautiful football discourse. Let's go ahead and get into it with Bo Nix. Let's talk about Bo Nix because he's a very divisive prospect at this point. Either you hate Bo Nix or you're a Bo Nix truther, whereas kind of where I'm finding myself as recently. I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Bo Nix fan, but at this point in his career, he's a quality quarterback and he should be considered a legit day one, early day 2 draft prospect. I think that's where we're at with Bo Nix. He had a stellar performance once again against Stanford. They were a bit slow going. Remember, it was like 14-6 at half, but then they turned up the notch in the third quarter. He ends the day with 290 passing yards for 4 tutties. The dude has been wonderful this year. He truly has. And I know the haters of Bo Nix. You remember Auburn Bo Nix. I think that's where a lot of people are at. Like, they remember the promise, the former SEC Freshman of the Year, and then just sucking. And then he just moves elsewhere. And it's like, yeah, no, I remember that guy. He's a big letdown. Last year for Oregon, he wasn't half bad. I think if he would have came out, I had him as like a 3rd round prospect. And looking at him this year, I honestly think he probably is in that like mid to back end of the 1st round area when it comes to this draft, coming in at 6'2", 217. The decision making has been so much better for Bo Nix. The processing of the offense, going through his reads, have been much better for Bo Nix. He's got a good arm that's good, decent size. He's got wheels. He can extend plays. Like, I think the dude has the tools, and it seems like he's finally put them all together. Like, this is a guy with a wealth of experience dating back to his days of Auburn. I think he's like almost a guy you can start right away in the NFL, and we should be looking at him as a 1st rounder. I know a lot of people are going to be looking at the more, maybe the younger, higher upside guys, your JJ McCarthy, your Quinn Ewers, which, to be fair, Quinn Ewers is kind of the guy I favor in that. Shedeur Sanders, which you could actually make a really good case for Shedeur, maybe over Bo Nix. I just think Bo Nix has the stronger arm. But like the decision making, he has really improved. That's probably the biggest thing. This dude isn't trying to force it on his like open reads. And maybe even if you're like, no, I remember watching Oregon Bo Nix, and I bet you probably only watched the Georgia game, the opener last year, because he got so much better throughout the season. And this year, I think we're seeing that, man. He's been good. And granted, outside of probably Colorado and Texas Tech, they haven't really faced a ton of tough competition, but it's the Pac-12. The competition's about to rev up. It truly is. But I had to give a shout out to Bo Nix. But we're going to stay with the quarterback class, as I'm going to go to my boy Jackson freaking Dart. After last week when I was down on him, which rightfully so, wasn't his best game there against Alabama. But this week against LSU, he was unstoppable. Went 36 of 39 for 389 yards, 4 touchdowns, and then added another 50 yards rushing with a rushing TD, so 5 total touchdowns. The dude's 6'2", he's 220. He's got a good build. I'm not saying the dude's fast, but he's got wheels. He can extend plays. He's not very gonna strike fear into the defenses with his legs. He's not that mobile, but he's mobile enough. And this week against LSU, one of my biggest criticisms of him the last 2 weeks against Alabama, against Georgia Tech, was like his ball placement has been all over the place. And he tightened it up this week, an 80% adjusted completion rate. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Listen, man, I think the guy's got an arm that can push it to all levels of the field. I like his release. It's quick. And the ball placement, this is what I expected of Jackson Dart coming into the season. This was the Dart I was expecting, the good decision maker. The guy was like, okay, I don't have to necessarily go to my first read, much like Lane Kiffin guys of the past. I could look off my first read and I could go through other reads. The dude is just, I'm not saying he's a first rounder. I've reeled back on that. And I even questioned, would he be good enough to come out in this class? I do think he probably stays another year, but Jackson Dart, you're getting a thumbs up from me. Yes, indeed. Oh, buddy. It was a good outing for Jackson Dart, and it made me really, really happy because he was a guy I was a bit higher on at the beginning of the season. Listen, I know you love the NFL draft as much as I do, and you're going to want a nice hefty watch list of players during this college football season. Well, go ahead, check out my draft guide. You can purchase it for only $30 by Venmoing or PayPaling me. Links in the description. It's a one-time payment and you get it for this whole draft cycle and forever and always. Technically, it's a Google spreadsheet. So send me your email when you send the payment. I'll get you hooked up. You will see my current prospect rankings and big board, my full evals. And guess what? It updates throughout the whole draft cycle. So it's a great purchase and it's a great way to support the channel. We're going to stick with this game and we're going to go to Trey Harris. I haven't really talked about Trey Harris in depth on the channel as of yet because he really only had the Mercer game and I think he got hurt in the first half of the Tulane game. So this was probably the best way to evaluate him outside of what he did at Louisiana Tech the prior year. So I guess if you're unfamiliar with Trey Harris, let's talk about him for a little bit. He was a former 2-star recruit coming out of the 2020 class, spent 3 years at Louisiana Tech, and in his final 2 years at Louisiana Tech, he was a starter. He was first team all conference USA. Transferred here to Ole Miss. He's like, hey, gotta find a place to put my name on the map. And this place throws a lot of balls. And he did. He had an impressive game against Mercer, which granted, it's Mercer. Looked good against Tulane, which, hey, Tulane, I think they're the best team in the American Conference. But then he had a stellar showing here against LSU, which now people are like, oh, LSU's not that good of a defense. Still, that's good competition regardless. The dude had 8 receptions, 153 yards, and a tutty. He had 4 forced missed tackles, and that's kind of the thing with him. Like, he can create after the catch. He's a legit after the catch threat. Like, he shows really good, like, full body strength, displays the good contact balance. He's just tough to bring down, and he combines that with good breakaway speed. Like, he explodes upfield once he gets the football, and he explodes very well, very nicely out of his breaks. That's how he kind of creates that separation to break some of these long runs. And another thing I really do like about him is his ability to go up, and he's a ball winner. He's a guy that wants to go up and win at the contested catch point. It's not like he's fantastic. It's not like he's like studded, but over the course of his career, 50% of the contested catch rate is pretty darn good. So I'm cool with that. The dude wants to go up. He shows good hand-eye coordination and just gets good leverage to be able to try to bring in the football. A few little nitpicks I saw, like focus drops are huge with this guy. Like you can definitely see a ton of them, and they creep in. Like I think he has 2 drops this season, and they were all like focus catches or focus drops. I keep saying catches, focus drops. Don't think he's not the most nuanced route runner. He's ran a very simplistic route tree during his time with Louisiana Tech, with Ole Miss. But for the routes that he can run, the the limited route tree does run, he's a problem, man. Like, this guy's a movable weapon. He could win inside and out. And I'm kind of liking him in that early day 3, late day 2 area, because this is just a loaded draft. And I can't wait to see more of them. You know, quite frankly, we could talk about more of the guys in this game, like Malik Neighbors, who would have thought he had a good game, coming up with 8 receptions for 102 yards. You had Jordan Watkins, the other side of Trey Harris, where I was kind of hoping that'd be Zachary Franklin, but he opened the year hurt. Jordan Watkins, 5 catches for 103 yards and a tutty. I'm going to try to dig into him a little bit. You got, on the other end, Brian Thomas Jr., someone who I haven't even got around to, but he's got really good size. What is he coming at for LSU? 6'4", 205, 8 receptions, 124 yards, and 3 tutties. Looks like there's probably a lot of good receiving talent just in this game alone. But moving on to the next cat on the list, I got Ray Davis out of Kentucky. He had a huge game for Kentucky. Going for 26 carries, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then he added another 9-yard touchdown reception in here. Just annihilated Florida. Had 10 forced missed tackles in the game. And this is a guy to keep your eye on. He is an older guy. He'll be 24 by the time he starts his rookie year. But you look at him at 5'10", 210 pounds. Might be 216 now, but the dude gets low. He shows really good vision. He shows nice jump cuts, so a little quickness in the feet, and he kind of explodes through holes. Like, he's probably, for the most part, a one-cut runner. And he's shown to have almost that home run speed. Like, really does. Probably still just by virtue of being the running back position. And this is kind of a good class. Might be more in the day 3 realm. But this is one hell of a day 3 pick you can get. This guy's been very productive through his career. Take a sip of water. So let's go back. He's a former 3-star recruit out of the 2019 class, played running back and defensive back in high school. He went to Temple in 2019, where he played in 12 games with 6 starts, 192 carries, and he made first team all freshman team. And he was second in school history in every freshman rushing category, only trailing behind a name you might recognize, Bernard Pierce, former Raven. In the second year, he played 4 games in the shortened season, decided to transfer to Vandy in 2021. Didn't really get to play for Vandy. He started, I think, the first 3 games, and then he had a season-ending toe injury. But in 2022, started all 12 games. He was a big part of that team's as successful as Vandy can be, I guess. But he was a big reason for that. Decided to transfer as a grad to Kentucky, and it's been wonderful. He's had a very, very good season thus far, with almost 600 yards rushing on the season and 8 touchdowns via rushing. Another little fun fact, little fun tidbit about him. He's got 10 siblings. That's kind of ridiculous. But he's also look into his backstory, because this guy has got a very touching story where he was homeless at the age of 12. And he had to make a decision to split off from his younger siblings, because he had 2 younger siblings at the time, where there was a family that wanted to adopt, but they only had room for 2, so he had to decide to split ways with them so that they could go have a home and a family. And he kind of bounced around. He's got a really good story, and you kind of see the perseverance, and just makes him a guy you want to root for. So yeah, there's Ray Davis here. We're gonna go ahead and move on to Frank Gore Jr. The name might sound familiar. Does it? Had a good game here against Texas State. Texas State, a very solid team there in the Sun Belt. He had 24 carries for 123 yards, 2 tutties, had 11 forced missed tackles in this game, and he's playing for a really bad Southern Miss team. He just is. So he's not going to get a lot of hype, I think, behind his name, but I think he's a draftable guy. If the name couldn't tell you, yeah, he is the son of former NFL running back Frank Gore. But he's got size working against him. Coming in at 5'8", 195. It's just not ideal size. But you do like that low center of gravity because he actually absorbs contact pretty well. He's got 21 forced missed tackles on the year on 74 carries. But if you look last year, he had 83 forced missed tackles on 227 carries. So a guy that can eat contact. He really, really can. He's got quick feet, good start ability. I like his speed and his elusiveness. He's just dangerous with the ball in his hands, and he's so dangerous to the point that, like Southern Miss at times, they will try to find all sorts of ways to get the ball in his hands. Like this guy had 3 passing touchdowns in 2022. He's going to need more bulk at that size. He really, really is, because he does kind of lack power throughout his frame, and it's going to be a concern. It's going to be a concern when he gets to the next level. Will that contact balance still be something that he can hang his hat on? Wasn't used much in the passing game, so he runs your typical running back route tree, which is fine. And he is playing against less than ideal competition. But definitely Frank Gore, another running back in this class, probably in the day 3 area that I got my eyes on. All right, we're going to move to Christian Haynes out of Connecticut, baby. That's right. Oh, I can't remember if he actually made, I feel like he probably made my top 10 interior prospects rankings, but if he did then, he's sure as heck going to now, because this guy's been flipping amazing for UConn. Played Utah State this past week, where he allowed no pressures or sacks on 38 pass blocking snaps. So you'd be like, good, he should. But you could go back to, like, he faced Duke. He allowed no pressures and no sacks. You go to NC State, a team that's actually got some quality talent, like draftable talent there, like got Devin Van on the defensive line. He only allowed 2 pressures, and he did allow a sack, and that actually happened to be his worst game of the year, and it was the opener. Like, this dude has been nice, and he's been nice for like quite some time. Like last year, like he could have came out and probably been a day 2 prospect. So he's coming in here at 6'2", 313 pounds. He's a former 2-star recruit, wrestled in high school, redshirted his freshman year at UConn. That was back in 2018. He started all games in 2019 at right guard. In 2020, they canceled the season because of Rona. But then it was rinse and repeat. He's played right guard full time for about 4 seasons now here at Connecticut, and he's been phenomenal. He was a first-team All-Independent last season. He's going to be one again this year. The dude's just a smooth mover. He's got quick feet. Very like little wasted movement from him. Like his hands are good. His footwork is good. Quick out of his stance. Plays with that nasty nature the NFL just loves, where it's like, hey, bury this guy 6 feet deep in the run game. He's got that. Like a couple of things he needs to work on is trying to gain and maintain leverage, which at 6'2", that shouldn't be a problem for him. But it is something that I noticed he struggled at. But I will say, technique-wise, this guy's he made strides last year, and he's looked utterly dominant this season. I don't think he's really a phone booth guy, but I wouldn't really. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't think he's a phone booth guy, but I won't count him out of it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say there. I would believe it if he ended up like, no, I could do this. Like, okay, yeah, no, you're actually really good. So I ain't gonna fret none. But yeah, no, if he wasn't on your list now, he should be. I was talking about this guy last year. All right, moving on to the defensive side of the football. This game actually happened on Friday. It's Jonah Ellis from Utah. They did have a losing effort, unfortunately, against the Beavers, but he was phenomenal. 6 pressures, 2 sacks, 6 defensive stops. He's already got 20 pressures on the season with 7 sacks. He was able to get pressure against Florida. He's gotten pressure against UCLA. He had a mammoth game where he had, we got 10 pressures, 3 sacks. Absolutely ridiculous. The guy has just been good. He really has. I'm kind of curious what his length will end up being. That's kind of like probably the big thing I'm looking at right now. Technically, he doesn't have to be eligible for this class. But coming in at 6'2", 246. So like I was kind of getting who was the cat from Eastern Michigan? Oh, I feel like it's on the tip of my tongue. Jose Ramirez from last season. Kind of gives me those kind of vibes. But Jonah Ellis, if he doesn't come out this year, he's coming then in the 2025. This guy's going to end up in the NFL. Like, you could just tell from his family tree. He was a former 3-star recruit from the 2021 class. And his father, Luther, played defensive tackle for Utah and was a first-round pick by the Detroit Lions in 1995. His dad played in the league for 10 years before I think he had a back injury. He ended up having to retire or something. But he is now actually the defensive line coach at Utah. So that's kind of cool. He's getting to coach his son. If you look at his brothers, his 3 older brothers, all of whom have at least played at some sort in the NFL. Like you look at Caden Ellis. You might recall him. He was with New Orleans, had the big year, and now he's with the Atlanta Falcons. You got his brother Christian, who also plays linebacker, and he's actually currently with the Philadelphia Eagles. And then his brother Noah, who was actually in last year's draft, or maybe the draft before that. But he was the defensive tackle out of Idaho. And he was a UDFA picked up by the Eagles. I think he's now playing elsewhere, not in the NFL, but somewhere else. But the NFL bloodlines, they're here. They're here. And it's just a matter of time before Jonah Ellis is in the NFL. In terms of a round projection, I kind of want to go over a little bit more with him. But, man, yeah, no, it has been impressive. I mean, at the very least, we're probably talking about like if we're going to go with a Jose Ramirez, probably in that 5th round area. But I mean, as they continue to face better competition in the Pac-12, I mean, I could only imagine his star getting bigger. I do want to mention out of this game, the linebacker from Utah. Oh, what's his name? It is Renee. Was it Renee? Okay, Renee Reed. Just sounds weird. Renee Reed. But out of Utah, he is he's interesting. I'm kind of curious about the age on this guy. He's coming from the 2018 class. He's been lights out this year. He really, really has. Like, the dude has been phenomenal. He's been everywhere. If you remember, he had the pick 6 against UCLA. He got knocked out early in the Florida game, but he was able to return for the Weber State game the following week. But he was a former 3-star recruit. His father actually played at BYU and signed with the Carolina Panthers as a UDFA. Oh, it wasn't Luther Ellis that had the back injury. It was Reed's father that had the back injury. Because, okay, he played 3 years in the NFL, but had a career-ending back injury. Okay, that makes sense. But where Reed started his journey, he was initially at Utah State in 2018, but did a 2-year mission trip for the Church of Latter-day Saints. So he was on a mission trip. When he did arrive back in 2020, he decided to leave Utah and just walk on at Utah. So already the cojones, the balls on that cat. And then started 6 games in 2021, started every game last year, first team all Pac-12. And it's looking like it's going to be a rinse and repeat for him. So he's going to be an interesting prospect in this linebacker class that's a little scattered right now, if I do say so myself. And I want to stay on topic here because I want to continue to talk about the linebacker class. Talk about Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who you may look at 6 tackles, 2 defensive stops, a sack, a pressure. I think he had an interception too against Syracuse. Yeah, he did it all against Syracuse. He had an interception. He had a pass breakup. But I feel like he has had a very uneven season. And he has fallen a little bit down my board. He's not a coverage guy. I really don't think he is. Like, he has his natural feel for the position. But this year, you're starting to see some of just the limitations, whether it's, okay, not exactly an ideal size. He's not like this, like, I don't think he's like a bona fide, like, super athlete at the position. And I think we're kind of seeing that in coverage. He allowed both of the touchdowns in the Syracuse game. One was basically in garbage time at the end, so I don't really care too much about that, but he did allow one at the beginning of the game. And he's kind of been he's been exposed a little bit this year in coverage. 83% catch rate allowed. I mean, typically you're going to see that number somewhere between 70 to 80% in the NFL, but this cat was averaging sub 70% coming into this season. So you were kind of hoping for a little bit better from him. He still has a bit of a pass rush upside to him. It's just not quite the win rate. It was, it's close to. It's not. Essentially, he's not having a year like he did last season. So it kind of sucks. Like, I still think he's one of the better linebackers in this class. But now you're starting to maybe looking at these guys that don't really maybe have the size concerns, that might be better athletes. And you're starting to maybe put them over him. Even like a Barrett Carter, his teammate there, who's just a phenomenal athlete. So, like, I kind of want to mention Trotter. Like, for me, I think firmly the linebacker class is day 2. I don't know if there's a guy that I would take day 1 currently in this linebacker class, but firmly he's in this day 2 mix with guys like Barrett Carter, Danny Stutzman, Tommy Eichenberg, Cedric Gray. You got Junior Colson. Like, there's a ton of guys we could be talking about in this day 2 area, so to speak. All right, moving on to the next player on the list. I want to just go ahead and give a little shout out to Cooper DeJean, because I feel like he gets slept on in this class because no one really knows where to put him. They don't know if they want him to be a safety or keep him at corner. Iowa's kept him at corner this year, though he has played plenty of safety snaps, and he's been fabulous at both. He had an interception this past week against Michigan State on top of a 70-yard punt return. Yeah, the guy makes moves. He's got a 10% missed tackle rate, which honestly I think that's a little higher than it was the previous season. But I think, all in all, like, you're dealing with a very good athlete here at 6'1", 207. Very quick, very fast. Like, my biggest nitpick with him is just he's very high in his back pedal, and it leads him not to be as explosive as he can be when he has to come downhill, which kind of a wild thing to think about, given how good of an athlete he is. So maybe moving to the safety position is not such a bad idea. Just have him moving downhill constantly. So yeah, it was a 4% missed tackle rate last year, so 10% is up on the season. But I mean, they're just not trying to throw this guy's way for the most part. Like, you saw Utah State, Iowa State open the year trying to target him heavy to no success. And since then, Penn State, stay away from him. Western Michigan, they stay away from him. Michigan, they stayed away from him. Teams aren't throwing his way. Like, I'm not saying this guy is like, oh, plug and play, shut down corner in the NFL. But I mean, there's something to it. This guy's production is phenomenal. He's allowing a 54% completion rate. And he's like, the past 3 games, he's only been targeted 9 times compared to the 13 times he was targeted in the prior 2 games. And the dude's only allowed all of 13 receptions on the season. Like, the guy is playing some good football. Let's not sleep on him. He's going to be a top 20, top 25 guy drafted in this class. Firmly still a first rounder. Easy. And like, again, if you're unfamiliar with how gifted of an athlete this guy is, we can go into his background real quick. As back in high school, he played both quarterback and defensive back. He played basketball, baseball, track. His parents were all American athletes at Huron University. Never heard of it. He is Iowa's like the state of Iowa there in terms of high school, the leading scorer, the second leading scorer in basketball behind TJ Hawkinson, another Iowa great there. But it's funny that he's ahead of the basketball player, Harrison Barnes. He had the fastest 100-yard dash of any runner in state during his senior year. Like, gifted athlete. Like, South Dakota State recruited him to play quarterback. Like, gifted athlete in general. Yeah, this guy's a football player. Sign me up for him. All right, next on the list, I got Howard Cross the third out of Notre Dame. I will talk about his teammate while we're here as well. But as you can see, 6 foot, 288, a little bit of a tweener at that size. And the dude, it's wild. I feel like I'm talking about all these guys with dads that used to play in the NFL. Because if you look at Cross, his father, Howard Cross Jr., played tight end at Alabama. And then he played, after being drafted by the New York Giants, he played 13 seasons at tight end for the Giants, winning a Super Bowl with them. So yeah, the lineage is kind of there. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, and really really started getting used heavily in the rotation in 2021. Last season, he started seeing more playing time, and this year he's been utterly disruptive. This past game, 10 tackles, 8 defensive stops. You have 6 pressures, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and let's kind of talk about this real quick. He did have the sack at the end of the game on Riley Leonard that forced the fumble that also injured Riley Leonard. Was it a dirty play? I don't know. It wasn't. It was just unfortunate the way he bent backwards. Riley Leonard, also being a quarterback prospect in this class, don't know the significance of the injury yet. Don't know how long he'll be out. Duke does have a bye this week. I don't know how soon he'll be able to return. That's kind of important, but let's talk about Howard here. Totally destroyed Duke. You might also be asking, okay, what about Graham Barton? Graham Barton didn't play this game with a hamstring injury, so they were already down. But, I mean, typically Barton's playing out at tackle, and most of the reps that Howard is seeing is around, like, the B-gap, 3-tech position. And like, legit, this cat's lightning quick. He's got the quicks to ruffle interior offensive linemen out of their jimmies. Like, he's just too twitchy. He's too agile for them to keep up with. And, like, he's got that stout size at 6 foot that actually gives him good natural leverage to work underneath these guys with relative ease. And that's exceptionally hard to deal with. Like, if you heard any, like, interview with offense, like a guard or a center, they talk about, who are the toughest guys to match up with? And they always talk about, like, honestly, these guys that are, like, shorter than me, that could get underneath with, like, no problems asked, they are so tough that just have that low center of gravity. So there is that. I will say, again, dude's a big tweener at this point. Like, he doesn't really have an ideal size for the interior, and I'm not entirely confident with his athleticism as it translates to the outside. But I mean, we could, like, shoot. We could just go ahead and meet in the middle, have this guy be a 5-tech right over the tackle, 3-4 end, and I think he could be stellar. If you're looking for that disruptor, that big motor player, like, he is kind of your guy. Also, I do want to mention his teammate, because I'm going to be looking back at some I'm going to go back to the Ohio State Notre Dame game, because I want to go back and watch a few things defensively for Notre Dame. You got Riley Mills, who is, I know Mike Renner is pretty darn high on Riley Mills currently. This was a guy that was a former 4-star, participated in track and field. The guy's big. He's 6'5", 306, so you already know it's discus and shot put. And he got into the starting lineup last season, and now he's next to Cross as a full-time starter. I don't think he's as disruptive. But, I mean, with a guy like Mills, you're not going to worry about his size. He's got this all-around game where he can win with power. He can win with quicks as well. But, like, he's pretty overwhelming in that regard. So, he's probably going to be a hot riser. And I'm kind of curious when I grade him and, like, try to get a final grade in terms of putting them officially on my board. On him and Cross, currently, I'm kind of, like, curious where they might end up. Like Mills, I feel like it's going to be in my top 10 defensive interiors. Cross, I'm kind of curious because, again, it's that tweener mold. It is very, very interesting. But that's it for the video. Go ahead, do that YouTube thing. And as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.